Welcome to the Metal Mat Podcast, and today we will be talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street. But first, I want to say something very important. Chucky's Playground is having a live stream this Friday. We will be watching Child's Play 3, and of course, Bride of Chucky. Is that something you want to miss? I don't think so. So if you want to find out more details about this, go ahead and sign up or just come on to Chucky's Playground. As always, I will post a link in the description. On the 4th of July, we did a live stream where we watched Child's Play 1 and 2, and it went so well, we decided, hey, why not we do another one? It was so much fun, and I guarantee you we will have a lot of fun this Friday at 8, 7 Central. For more details, go to Chucky's Playground, and I'll see you on the playground. So now it's time for some music news. And Fozzy just released their new album, Do You Want to Start a War? I've heard a few songs from here, like One Crazed Anarchist and Lights Go Out, and they were great, so I'm definitely going to try and take a listen to this album, because I think it's going to be really good. I'm a fan of Fozzy's. I think they get better and better with each passing album, and I'm interested to check this one out. And now, Ozzy Osbourne will be releasing a compilation album, Memoirs of a Madman, and it's basically a compilation album. It's kind of like a box set, but not really. I really don't know what it's being categorized as. It's just a compilation album. And the compilation album is just, I already have them. Like, I already have all the songs. As far as a newcomer would go, if you're a new fan of Ozzy's, I'd definitely check it out, because it has all of his hits, all of his big hits. And I'm actually really glad that they put Perry Mason on the album, because that song is a song that just doesn't get enough love. And I really love that song, underrated song by Ozzy. So I'm glad they put that song on the album. But it basically has all his big hits, you know. Uh, Older fans don't really need to get this one. I guess hardcore fans could, because it'll also have a DVD which has all of his music videos, interviews, stuff like that. So I say hardcore fans would get it, and newcomer fans would get it as well. So Joe Perry is going to be having a new album out next year, new solo album. And even though I like the Aerosmith stuff a little bit more, I do like Joe Perry's solo stuff every now and then. And Joe Perry, obviously one of the best guitarists ever, like maybe top 5 for me. So, I'm definitely interested to check that out. And finally, Nonpoint will have a new album out this fall. And their new song, Breaking Skin, is really good. And so I really like Nonpoint. They're one of my favorite modern rock bands. Aside from Seven Dust. Seven Dust and Nonpoint are maybe my favorite modern rock song bands. So I'm definitely interested to check that album out. So that's all for music news, and now it is time to shoot the shuffle. Play another round of Shoot the Shuffle. And on this round, number 1, Basketball Jones by Barry White and Chris Rock from the Space Jam soundtrack. I'm not ashamed to admit it, this is actually one of my favorite songs of all time now. Like, I listen to it constantly. It just has a really soothing beat, I mean, Chris Rock, it really depends on, I guess it really depends on whether you find Chris Rock funny or not. Because he can kind of get a little bit overbearing in this one. I don't really mind it too much, but it does kind of show you how much you can really tolerate Chris Rock. For me, I can tolerate him on a song fine. Number 2, Midwest Thing by Jim Gaffigan from Doing My Time. Jim Gaffigan, one of my favorite comedians, and this was a really cool album. Number 3, Nobody's Fool by Cinderella from Night Songs. Cinderella, not your usual glam band. If you took one look at them, you would think that they were glam, but they're more of an AC/DC kind of hard rock band, blues rock type band. And this is a really great ballad from '86. I believe it's '86. Number 4, Ace of Spades by Motorhead from Ace of Spades. I mean, what can you say about this? It's Motorhead. And this is one of their best songs. Number 5, Walk This Way by Run DMC, featuring Steven Tyler and Joe Perry from Raising Hell. Run DMC, honestly, a really good rap group. I mean, they kind of back in the early days, they would kind of fuse together rock and hip hop, and this song was definitely the bridge to do that. And I think if this song didn't exist, then we probably wouldn't have the new metal bands, maybe. Number 6, Make It by Aerosmith, from Aerosmith. This is a pretty good, it's an okay song from their debut album. Number 7, Get Lucky by Daft Punk from Random Access Memories. Arguably the biggest hit song of 2013. This is a really good disco-esque song. Number 8, Knock 'Em Dead Kid by Motley Crue from Shout the Devil. And Motley Crue, I've said it a million times, but they're an awesome band. Hate that they're retiring, but they're going out on top. Number 9, Bad Horsey by Steve Vai from Alien Love Secrets. Steve Vai, great guitar player, awesome. This EP is pretty interesting to listen to. And number 10, Every Child is Special by George Carlin from It's Bad For You. George Carlin's last comedy special, last comedy CD, and he goes out on a high note. So that's all for Shoot the Shuffle, and now it's time to talk about Elm Street. And I'm going to start with the very first Elm Street, A Nightmare on Elm Street, back in 1984. And this is a really good, dark movie, and great horror movie. It is a great one to start out the franchise. It stars Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson. She moves into Elm Street, and all the kids on Elm Street, they somehow seem to die in their sleep, and no one knows why, but it's Freddy Krueger, a disfigured man who haunts them in their dreams and kills them in their dreams. And I think that's a really interesting and original concept. The movie also marks Johnny Depp's very first role, and the weird thing about that is it seems like a lot of major Hollywood stars got their starts in horror movies. Like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun. I'm trying to think here. Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4. Stuff like that. And it just seems like a lot of major Hollywood stars got their starts in horror movies. And it's really cool to kind of go back and see what they did before compared to what they're doing now. So, this is a really good dark film. Tina's death is great. Freddy Krueger kind of going through the wall, the glove coming up in the bathtub. Those are all iconic scenes, and so this is a really good film. If you're more of a fan of the darker Freddy Krueger, this is definitely one to start with. So we move on to number 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. And this one centers around a new character named Mark, I think his name is. And he moves into the same house that Nancy was in. And Freddy Krueger he's trying to come back and tell him to spread his message and stuff like that. And it's definitely more psychological than the first one. Because Freddy Krueger, he doesn't really appear in it at all. And he only has 15 minutes of screen time. But when he does appear in it, he's great. And the supporting character Grady is also great as well. And I don't really think it's as bad as people make it out to be. It's kind of a disappointing sequel, but as a standalone film, it's actually pretty good. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it. It's just kind of forgettable and stuff like that, but I think it's all right. So now we move on to A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, and I wouldn't say this is my favorite Elm Street, but it's right up there. I would say this is my second favorite Elm Street because it's really good. This was Patricia Arquette's first role, and she plays Kristen, who everybody thinks tries to commit suicide, but she doesn't. It's really Freddy Krueger, and she was in a dreamlike state, and so she's sent to an asylum filled with all these people who are kind of victims of Freddy Krueger. It's a really good cast, a cast of characters, and all the characters are very likable, which is definitely a far cry from the modern horror slasher films today, where really only one person is likable and the rest are just jerks. But this film, all the characters, or at least most of them, are just great and likable. You want them to succeed, you want them to win. Heather Langenkamp returns as Nancy. And one thing I forgot to mention, Heather Langenkamp is great in these movies because she gives the character of Nancy charisma. She gives her strength. She's a very strong character, and that's really so great about that character. And that's why I think Nancy is one of the best horror characters ever, one of the best protagonists of all time when it comes to horror, because she has a lot of charisma, a lot of strength, and I like that about her. And Nancy actually dies in this film, which that was always kind of strange to me, but whatever. And Lawrence Fishburne has like a cameo in here. Like he plays one of the male nurses. It's kind of pretty interesting. And there's a lot of cool deaths in here. A lot of good dream sequences, like Philip's death, where Freddy is kind of like the puppet master, and that's a really great scene, very iconic. I don't know what her name is, but Freddy pulling her head through the TV, smashing her head in the TV, that's a great one as well. So this movie definitely has a lot of great moments to it, and it's definitely one of the best Elm Street movies. So now we move on to number 4, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Master. This one, I'm not a huge fan of this one. In fact, I'd probably say this is probably my least favorite Elm Street movie. It's just I wasn't a huge fan of it because for one, they pretty much kill all the surviving characters from 3, which is really pointless. And I rather would have just let them be forgotten about rather than just killed off. But and we get introduced to a character named Alice Johnson, portrayed by Lisa Wilcox, who is great, and she's just as good as Nancy, I think. And while this wouldn't be the first Elm Street I would watch, and it wouldn't be the first one that I would do, but it's all right. I mean, there's not a lot I can remember about this film. It's just kind of forgettable and boring, and it's just I wasn't a huge fan of it. So now we move on to number 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. And I might be in the minority on this, but I love this movie. In fact, I'd probably call it my favorite Elm Street. And I mean, I really like the visuals. I really like the gothic tone of the whole thing. And the dream sequences are just great. The motorcycle, the automobile kind of dream with Dan at the beginning of the movie is really great. The swimming scene is also good as well. Comic book scene, that's awesome as well. And the entire ending is just weird. It's trippy and it's pretty cool. And it's just I really like this movie, and I know I'm probably one of the minority on this, but I do love this movie, and it would probably take the number 12 spot on my favorite movies. I really love this movie, and I thought that it kind of corrected all the wrongs, and I liked it a lot better than 4. So now we move on to number 6, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Yeah, I know. Let's just roll with it. And in this one, Springwood is pretty much wiped out. There's no one left. This psychologist, I think, kind of just takes all these surviving kids into like a home. And I don't like this as much as the other ones, but they're good. Like the video game sequence is great as well. There's not a lot else I can remember about this off the top of my head. Oh, wait, hold on. Alice Cooper as Freddy's stepfather is really cool as well. We get the flashback through to Freddy's childhood, and it's really interesting to watch. So, but other than those two particular scenes, and the Carlos, the deaf kid's ear, that's a good scene as well. So there are some good scenes in here, but not a whole lot. And while I don't hate this as much as other people, I think it's a fun movie. It really, you have to go into this particular movie with the knowing that it's a comedy. Like at the very beginning of the movie, Freddy dresses up as the Wicked Witch of the West, and that really should tell you that this is going to be really goofy. But if you do like that kind of goofy kind of horror, then you will definitely have fun with this one. So now we move on to the seventh movie, New Nightmare, which is the first Nightmare film since the third one that Wes Craven worked on. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really like New Nightmare. Like I wasn't a huge fan of the meta kind of humor to it. Like at first it was fun, but then it kind of overstayed its welcome. And I don't think they really took full advantage of it as they could have. Heather Langenkamp is back as playing a version of herself, and as always, she's great. She also has a son who is probably the most annoying kid in any horror movie. Like, I was just so annoyed by this kid. Like, I don't know why. And I didn't want to hate him. I didn't want to hate the character, but I ended up hating him anyway, because I just thought he was so annoying. But, I mean, that's just me. And Freddy Krueger doesn't really appear until the last 30 minutes, and the last 30 minutes are the best part of the movie. It's very creative, very dark, but other than that, there's not a whole lot I like about this movie. I mean, that's just me, but yeah, I didn't really care much for New Nightmare. And so now we move on to Freddy versus Jason. And as I mentioned before on my top 10 favorite movies, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, which might sound a little bit weird. But this film was directed by Ronnie Yu, who also directed Bride of Chucky, which is why I might like it so much. But it's a really cool kind of movie. Freddy, he's stuck in hell, and he's trying to get out, and he decides to use Jason as a way to get everybody in Springwood to remember him. And when Jason starts killing too many of Freddy's victims, he decides to fight him himself. And it's kind of a bizarre premise, but I mean, it works. And the fight between Freddy and Jason is great. It's gory, has a ton of blood in it, and it's just great as always. The music by Graham Revell, who also worked on Bride of Chucky, is awesome as always. And one thing I kind of figured out about this movie is that for some reason, the characters of Will and Laurie really remind me of Jesse and Jay from Bride of Chucky. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because the people associated with the movie, like Ronnie Yu and Grant Revell, are working on it, because it does have a bit of a similar style to Bride of Chucky. But I don't know. Those two just remind me of Jesse and Jade so much. But yeah, this is a great movie. It might be a bit disappointing for fans who pictured a different kind of thing in there, but if you want to see a fight between Freddy and Jason, you're definitely going to get it, and you're definitely going to have a fun time with this movie. So I love Freddy vs. Jason. So that's it for A Nightmare on Elm Street. I love this series, even though it does have a couple of missteps every now and then. Like, it's still a solid horror movie series that really does stand the test of time, particularly the first and the third one. And of course the fifth one, but hey, that's just one guy's opinion, you know what I mean? But I love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and that's all for this episode of the Metal Mad Podcast. And on the next episode, we will be covering another film series of Wes Craven's, Scream.